In this lesson, we will learn a technique for creating a fleshy eye system. You might have heard of the term, but what is a fleshy eye? Well, it's really straightforward. As the eyeball rotates, the eyelids should slide a bit. That would be very lifelike, so we can add some realism to our rig by adding a feature like this. Let's go ahead and head over to Tools, Manage Layers, and we'll hide the model layer. Now, underneath the Create panel, let's go to Helpers and we'll create an exposed TM or transform node. Let's press Shift A and we'll align it to any one of our eye bones here because they all share the same pivot point. Now underneath the Modify panel, let's go to our display rollout. Let's go ahead and start bringing down its size. We could also change its display to box. I find that to be a bit easier in this case to work with. We'll have this renamed to expose underscore L underscore I01. It will now create a layer for it. Let's name the layer Hidden. Alright, great. So from here we'll make sure the default layer is active and let's go ahead and show that layer. Now the purpose of this object is to track the rotation of our eye bone so we can plug that into our eyelid bones. So if we were to grab the eye bone and grab our rotate tool, in gimbal mode you can see that it's the Z-axis that we'll need in order to control the up and down rotation of our eye bones. We could also get the rotation Y involved, so as the eye rotates in the Y-axis, we can have the eyelid bone slide a bit in that axis as well. So we'll tie all of that in using an expression. But first, let's go ahead and make sure we grab the transforms of that eye bone. And if you'd like, you can go ahead and take this transform node here, and we can go ahead and bring it over to the right side. We're not going to work on the right side in this lesson because the steps are the same, so I'll leave that up to you. But to save a bit of time, we can go ahead and clone this expose node. I'll press Ctrl V. I'll have this renamed expose RI01. Make it a copy. And we'll now go ahead and Shift A, align over to the right side. Alright, great. So to expose the transforms of an object, it's just a matter of going up to the top until we find Expose Node. Let's go ahead and click on None, and we'll click on the bone object that we'd like to expose. So that's going to be the eye bone. Alright, great. So you can see it will automatically assign a parent object, which is great. If we were to scroll down, we can now go ahead and take a look at the local transforms as well as the world transforms of this object. So right now the local transforms have some information here because this is the offset between this bone and its parent object, which is the upper jaw. So if you want to clear this out, let me go ahead and show you a quick trick I think you'll really like. We'll head back over to Create and we'll create a helper. Let's go ahead and just add that to the scene. We'll now go ahead and use Shift A to align that to our eye bone. We might keep this at a cross display so the two displays don't overlap. Let's go ahead and start bringing down the size. Now, very important here, we want to make sure that we align in position and orientation. So let's go ahead and use Alt A now, and we'll align back to that same bone object. So there's position. Let's go ahead and check orientation, and we'll now choose OK. What we can basically do here is make sure that the parent of our eye bone is actually this object, and since the transforms match, when we parent our eye bone to that object, that will zero out the transforms of the eye bone because there's no offset at that point. Alright, so one step at a time, let's go ahead and rename this to PT DRV for point helper driver underscore LI01. From there, we'll go ahead and clone the object. Let's have this renamed to PT DRV RI01. And then we'll use Alt A to align to the bone object on the right side. So let's make sure we align to the eye bone and not to the eyelids. All right, great. So once we've done that, let's go ahead and select both and have them stored in our hidden layer. We also want them linked to the upper jaw. So we'll grab our link tool and we'll take care of that. Great, now we can go ahead and freeze their transforms. We can now go ahead and take our eye bones and link over to these helpers. So there's one, and there's two. Once we've managed to do that with both eye bones selected, let's go in and freeze their transforms. Now take a look at something. If we go back to our expose node, you'll see that our z-axis is now zeroed out. This is great because now we can start with a 0 value. If we were to go ahead and scroll up here, you could see the new parent object now. Again, there's a 0 offset from its parent, and that's why we have a value of 0 now. All right, beautiful stuff. So once we have this value, we can go ahead and work with an expression to make sure that the rotation z will control the rotation z of our eyelids. All right, let's go ahead and get this started. We'll grab our upper lid, and we'll head over to our motion panel. Underneath the assigned controller rollout, we'll go ahead and find our rotate z-axis. There it is. We'll choose assign controller, and we'll grab the float expression controller. All right, so we need to now create our variable. We could simply call this expose, and we'll now choose create. We'll assign this to the z-axis that we have exposed. And since we haven't linked any of these exposed nodes just yet, it should be very easy to find these objects. Let's choose assign to controller. We'll expand objects. Here they are. Great, so we can go ahead and expand, and we'll get to object local Euler z. All right, so once we've managed to do that, we can check our path here. We can now go ahead and create our expression. So that's going to be expose, and we'll multiply by 0.5 so we get only half of the rotation of that z-axis. So we'll now go ahead and choose evaluate. Notice everything works just fine. Let's test this out. So when we grab our eye bone, as we start to rotate, we should notice that the upper lid rotates just half the amount. How cool is that? If we were to bring back our model, you'll notice that we get this skin-like behavior now, this skin sliding behavior. How cool. All right, so there's the z-axis. How about the y-axis? Let's go ahead and test that out. We'll go ahead and hide our model, and we'll go ahead and apply a float expression controller to the y-axis of that same bone object. So there is our float expression controller. Again, we'll create a variable named expose. Let's go ahead and search for the path that we need. And what's great is that you can see how 3ds Max remembers the path that we have used before, so that saves us some time. There's the y-axis. Let's choose OK. And here, let's go ahead and work with about 20%. We shouldn't need that much rotation for this to look right. So that's going to be expose, and we'll multiply by 0.2. Let's now choose evaluate and test this out. We'll bring back our character because it's cool to see this, the character visible. We'll go ahead and grab the nub of that eye bone. We'll press page up, and we'll start to move this in the y-axis, and take a look. We get some sliding. So now when we move the eye around, take a look at what we've done. And since we're working with an expression, what we can do is make sure later on that we add blinking control, and we'll tie that back into our expression. All we need to do is update that expression, and we're good to go. Now what we wouldn't want to do is freeze transforms on our eye bone, because that would kind of throw off our expression. We'd have to recreate those nodes, so be very careful about that. When you're going in and you're freezing your transforms, be careful not to do that on objects that have been connected into the system, because it will break those connections. All right, so that looks good. We just need to take care of the lower lid. And what we're basically doing here is working with the same values, but this time we're using the reciprocal, since this bone moves in the opposite direction. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Again, we'll go ahead and hide our character here. And let's go in and grab the lower lid. We might want to drop the rotate Z value just a bit because I think 0.5 might be too much. We might work with about 20%, but let's go ahead and test this out. Always want to experiment. All right, so go to float expression, which is okay. Let's create our variable. We'll name it expose, and we'll go ahead and search for the Z-axis. There it is, local Euler Z. All right, so now that's going to be expose, and we'll multiply by negative 0.5. Let's go ahead and start there and see how that looks. We'll choose evaluate. Go ahead and close this out. Go ahead and show our model after selecting the eye bone. And take a look at that. We're getting some really good results. So if you'd like, yeah, you can go ahead and drop that if you feel that the lower lid is moving a bit too much, and it might be. So what we'll go ahead and do then is head back to that expression. I'll just go ahead and hide the model again. We'll go ahead and select our eye bone. We'll go to the Z-axis, right-click and choose Properties to get back to our expression editor. We'll go ahead and drop this to about 20%, so that's negative 0.2. And we'll now choose Evaluate. All right, so if we were to grab the eye bone again, show our model, as we start to rotate, that looks very nice. All right, sweet. So once we've managed to do that, we can take care of the y-axis, and we'll use that same value of negative 20%. All right, so let's go ahead and finish up here. We'll go ahead and hide our model. We'll select the lower lid. We'll go to the y-axis, and we'll apply our float expression controller. We'll create our variable. We'll now assign a controller to it. It's going to be the y-axis. And the expression will be as follows. It's going to be expose. We'll multiply by negative 0.2. All right, let's test this out. So we'll choose evaluate. We're now going to grab the eye bone. We'll bring back our model, and we'll start to move this around. And take a look at that. We get some very realistic looking results. Should be really excited about that. All right, so that's a look at how to create a fleshy eye system, and it's very accurate. I really enjoy using it because it adds more realism to the rig. All right, so what we can now do with the eye bone selected is Alt right click and use transform to 0 to bring it back to its 0 position. And I'll go ahead and leave the opposite side up to you. Remember, once you're finished here, you'll want to take your expose node, you'll want to link that back to your skeleton. So we could always have this linked back to, let's say, the head bone. All right, it won't throw anything off because it's looking at another object. So no worries. So go ahead and take care of the right side, and after you're finished, have that linked back to the head bone. That'll be it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll go ahead and bring our attention to the eyebrows.